Afternoon for those that have joined us live, and I know that a lot of people are going to be watching this on catch up because I think we're recording it. So if you can hear me okay, can you just give me a big wave? Okay, that's great. I can see at least I know that's getting through. Well, thanks very much. Well, thanks very much for joining us on British Science Week. How exciting is this? And it's not very often that you get some people to beam into your schools from not just from boring Cambridge or boring UK, but also all the way from the Antarctic. And we've got two of our colleagues are going to do that and speak to us very shortly. So that's really exciting. I know that you're going to have a lot of really exciting questions that you've thought about. And if you can start to think about those and put them into the chat box, we're going to have some time at the end where we're going to be able to answer those specifically. So it's a really exciting hour that we've got ahead of us. So we haven't got very long for each of us to talk, so I'm going to talk fairly quickly and give you a bit of background. So I am John Ager. I am what's known as a Programme Director within the British Antarctic Survey, and I'm responsible for a very interesting programme of work called the Antarctic Infrastructure Modernisation Programme. It's a very grand title, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But basically, it's a plan of work that's modernising our aircraft and our ships and our buildings in the Antarctic and in the regions very close to that. And I'll show you a little bit more in a minute. So lots of really exciting stuff going on, and the colleagues that are joining me today have all got a role in that in some part, and they're going to tell you about that. And it's exciting because British Science Week and looking at science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is something that we all feel very passionate about. So with my colleagues from BAM Nuttall and from SWECO and from Ramboll, we're going to focus on all of those bits and pieces, and hopefully you'll get something really exciting from that. So you've known a little bit about me. So I'm somebody who's running this program of work. So really, what am I? I'm a project manager. I like to think that I'm probably the glue that joins together all of the moving parts as we try to do all of this great activity. When we look at what we want to do and where we want to do it and how we want to do it and how we set the requirement and how we get the money for it. And so if I cast my mind back a long time ago, before I started this job and before I spent over 30 years in the Royal Air Force flying aeroplanes, I was a mathematician. That was the thing I really loved. I love numbers and I love solving problems, and I love the logic of fixing things and getting things done. And I realized quite late in life that project management and program management, which is a slightly bigger version of project management, was the thing that really excited me. And that's what I'm doing now. I've been doing it for a couple of years with British Antarctic Survey. So let me just share something with you then. I know that my colleague's got a couple of slides here. So this is British Science Week, a STEM event. You've heard a little bit about me. So let me just tell you a little bit about British Antarctic Survey. So we are an organisation based in Cambridge. We sit within the Natural Environment Research Council and working into UK research and innovations. We're very much an innovation and science organisation. And whilst I am not a scientist, everything we do in British Antarctic Survey is about the science. It's about enabling science activity to go on. So whilst none of us are actually scientists in a pure sense, what we do within British Antarctic Survey is at the forefront of the most exciting science you can ever imagine. And I guess apart from being in Cambridge, here's a map you can see on the screen. And on one side, you can see that our main hub is down in a place called Rothera Research Station. So we talk about, and if you talk about to others about the Antarctic, we generally use our hands and our thumb, and the promontory which sticks out is almost where the thumb is, and where your thumb meets the rest of your hand, that's kind of where our main research station is at Rothera, and that's our hub for getting into the Antarctic. There are other ways in, but that's the way we tend to go in. We've got a remote research station, which we only use during the summer months now, Halley, and you might have seen it's quite an iconic thing, and that's exciting at the moment because it's perched on an ice shelf. And that's gradually breaking up into icebergs. So that's been quite exciting for us as well. We also have research stations just on the edge of the Antarctic at Sydney, an island about halfway between Antarctica and South Georgia. And on South Georgia, we've got 2 research stations as well there. And to give you a scale of it, the nearest bit of land that we've got is South America, and the distance really from the southern point of South America to our hub Rothera, is about 5 hours flying. So that's a bit like flying from the UK to Cyprus or to Egypt, or perhaps maybe just to the eastern coast of the US on a good strong wind behind you. So it's a vast area. And in that, you can see that there's room for doing lots of exciting activity. Things that we've done, and we really haven't got time to talk about all of the exciting stuff. But in terms of marine and life science, we track penguins and birds and whales and all types of seals. We look at krill, which is the very foundation of the food source that all of the marine life feeds on, and it's an indicator of how healthy our oceans are. So marine life science. On the ice shelves that you can see here, we drill down into the ice, because drilling into the ice, when the snow falls, it captures what is in the atmosphere, and that allows us to understand what was in the atmosphere at the time that the ice froze. And we can drill down over 1 kilometre into the ice. And as we go down further, it's like a time capsule. And every slice of ice that we can take out of that ice core tells us what the carbon was and what was in the environment and in the atmosphere at that time. And the best thing is, when it defrosts, it's like popping candy. It releases the stuff into the atmosphere, and you're actually sensing part of what was in the environment and the atmosphere millions of years ago, which is quite incredible. It's almost like finding a dinosaur, I guess, but even more exciting. I talked about icebergs and the ice sheets, and we have these breaking off. You might have heard about, or you can go and Google A68 and A74. A68 was an iceberg that was almost as big as South Georgia, and came very close to it. And A74 has just broken off very close to our research station in Halley, and that's been very exciting for us. And Halley is important to us too, because that's the location where BAS scientists discovered the hole in the ozone layer. And as we all know, that's become a really big indicator about the health of our planet and the challenges that we face. And it was the big wake-up call for us when we started to look at environmental issues. So BAS has science at the forefront. There are 10 different science disciplines, including space weather, looking at ionospheric disruption, and other aspects as well. So it is really cutting edge and exciting, but it can only happen because of the way that we help our scientists get into the region, and we do that through Rothera, which is our main base. And our work at the moment is to modernise the facilities that are going on there, and that's what my colleagues today are going to help share with you and their experiences of that. So in terms of modernising our buildings, on the slide you also have here, and we'll cover it as Chris talks and Billy talks a bit later, but at the bottom is a new science and operations building. So again, putting science at the heart of what we do. As if that weren't exciting enough, when you start to look at the science and the technology and the engineering and the mathematics behind it, just cut into that, a slice through that, and you see the various systems that we are trying to embed within that in a really novel way that puts sustainability and reducing carbon footprint at the heart of our operations down there. And you can see a very interesting snow deflector on the front. So to save us having to clear lots of snow that comes during the winter, it throws the snow forward. So it's really innovative design. And all of that can only happen because of the team of people that we put together. Some of them permanently, and we build a very strong relationship with our construction partners and our technical advisors, the people who are going to talk to you today. And you can see a picture on the top left on the slide here of just a few of the people that have been involved in all of those adventures, who have worked with me to solve the very complex challenges of looking at what we build and where we build it and how we build it and how we get there, and coming up with the really innovative designs and the bright thinking that actually means that we can go and do the remarkable science in the Antarctic. And that's what British Antarctic Survey is. And that's, I'm proud to say, that part of the role that I'm involved with in terms of taking that forward. So trying to put a bit more colour on that, we've got a couple of people who are going to talk to you. So the first person we're going to hand over to is Billy. And Billy, we know the comms are there. We've got a picture of you on the screen now, and we know that you're down south in Rothera. Maybe you can pick up the baton from there.
Hi, thank you, John. Hi, everyone. Yes, unfortunately, you've only got a picture of me, as I don't think the internet will allow video calls from all the way from Antarctica. But my name is Billy Thursfield, and I work for BAM as a civil engineer. If you don't know what a civil engineer does, then basically we're responsible for planning, designing a building, most of what you see around you each day, such as buildings, roads, bridges and tunnels. Currently, I'm managing the construction works of the new operations building that John described for British Antarctic Survey, the client. And it's my job to ensure the works are completed safely, in line with the design drawings, on time and to the satisfaction of the client, so that we give them a product they want and they're happy with how we've performed. This involves spending part of each day out on site, talking to the work supervisors and the engineers to coordinate and plan the works on site. The rest of the time, I spend time in the office, looking through paperwork, making sure everything's in place to allow the guys on site to do the actual work themselves. Being a civil engineer is never boring. I certainly find each day is different. Very challenging job, but very rewarding job. To see a project come to life from a set of drawings you spend time and effort in the UK to actually putting steel and concrete and stone and things in the ground in Antarctica or wherever you happen to be working in the world. I've always had an interest, really, from a young age in how things are built and put together. And I was never far away from a set of Lego as I was growing up. I still dabble a bit in technical Lego, putting bits and pieces together. I think this is where my life as a civil engineer started. It's a very exciting job, as I said, and you spend a lot of time outside, which is a big part of my life. I really enjoy being out in the outdoors, not just at work, but leisure as well. So yeah, it's been a really good opportunity for me to come to Antarctica, one, to do the work, but also to experience the natural beauty, trying to do some skiing and other activities in the leisure we have. That's fantastic. It's undoubtedly been the highlight of my career so far. I've been a civil engineer for nearly 20 odd years. And yeah, the 3 years I've spent down in Rothera have been fascinating. You can see some of the images of the wharf that we've built. This is for basically to upgrade and replace an old wharf that was at Rothera that had been built 30 years ago and needed to be replaced because of the new research vessel that BAS have constructed, the Sir David Attenborough. So it's able to moor up and use the facility. Working in Antarctica is a very unique place. Has very unique demands on it, but I think the biggest thing for me is the vast distance you are away from normal life in the UK. It's nearly 10,000 miles from the UK to Rothera, and it does sound a long way, and it is a long way, and it's not easy to get to. Even when flights are working, it's a two-day trip overall to get there. So yes, you feel a long way from home, but it's a very close-knit community, really strong relationships on station, not just in the construction team, but working with BAS and the scientists. It's a really incredible place to be. Where else could you work and look out of your office window and see whales, seals, penguins? It's a fantastic place to be. I think that's all for me for now. Move on to Chris.
Yes, hello there. Yep, somebody's found a picture of me that's on the screen in front of you. My name is Chris Lloyd. I'm a project manager, and I'm also working on the new developments here in Rothera. So I started my life actually designing ships. That was something that I wanted to do when I was little. I liked playing with, just like Billy, I liked playing with Lego. I liked building things. And so I started off my career building ships. And then I moved on to building ships that don't move around so much. And now I'm working on this new building here in Rothera. So I love Lego, I love building things, but I was also in the Scouts when I was younger. So I liked being outside, I liked going camping. I liked seeing wildlife. And that's something that I've always kept with me. So a lot of the work that you can see in the picture in front of you is outside in the snow and the ice of Rothera. And so being used to being outdoors has really helped here. Now, if you're interested in science and you're interested in building and you're interested in Antarctica, but you don't like being out in the cold, that's okay, because they give us really good coats. The new building in Rothera is going to take about 4 years to build. That's because we can't be building it all the time. We can only build it in the austral summer. So when it's summer down here in Antarctica, it's winter up back home in the United Kingdom. So that's why Billy and here are down here at the moment. This is when the good weather is happening. And if you look at that picture, even though it's all cloudy and looks a bit cold, that's good weather for Antarctica. So we only get about 5 or 6 months a year to actually do the work. Then we have to come back to the UK. And then during the winter in Antarctica, all of this will fill with snow. So that's a big challenge for us to get the people and all the building materials and the equipment to Antarctica. Like Billy, working in Antarctica has definitely been a highlight of my career. I've worked in a couple of different countries. I've worked in different places in Europe. I've worked in Norway. I've done some projects in Africa. But this project in Antarctica is really special. And it's a really interesting, technically challenging one as well. There is always science happening here at the BAS facility. And the new building will really help to bring that forwards and allow more scientists to come back to Rothera and to do more experiments and discover a lot more about our planet. So my ambition really is to see this building constructed. That's what I really want to do. We've got 3 years left, and hopefully we should be able to do it in that time. And I'm really looking forward to continuing with it. So I'll talk a little bit more about the building later on, but that's all for me for now.
That's great. Okay, look, thanks very much for that, guys, down south. And we talked a little bit as we came into this this sort of presentation. We're having a bit of a chat beforehand. It's hard to believe that you're what, about 3 hours behind now. I lose track, and a best part of 10,000 miles away, and yet so cut off. Yet you have so much of the creature comforts there with you. So I think probably just for the benefit of our audience, it's been a real challenge for us this year, as it has been for the whole globe, I think, dealing with COVID. But Billy and Chris and a team of about just over 20 people have gone down to put the foundations in that you saw in one of those pictures there. A massive undertaking. So everything that we've been through living in the UK, they've had to quarantine several times over in many ways, just be able to get on a ship. They've had to sail for about 6 weeks to get down to the Antarctic. They've had about 12 weeks of building in the Antarctic, and they've got they leave on Monday for about another 6-week trip to get back to the UK. So it's a massive undertaking. We wouldn't normally take that long to construct as we do, but that's the extreme that we've had to go to this season. So really exciting stuff. So thanks very much, guys, and we'll come back to you in questions if we can. I'm going to move on now to Belinda. If you'd like to tell us a little bit about your role.
Hi everyone, my name's Belinda. I'm 22 years old and I'm a trainee quantity surveyor. So I've been working for BAM Nuttall now for about 2.5 years, and I joined the company working as an apprentice quantity surveyor. So what a quantity surveyor does is that we monitor the financial status of the project. We're always looking at the cost aspects and making sure we aren't overspending or underspending our set budget. So I deal directly with subcontractors to ensure that payments are accurate and they're on time. I also do monthly reports for senior management to present the overall spend on the project and to answer any queries they may have. I actually haven't been to Antarctica yet, but one day I'm hoping to go. So as a child, I was very active and I really loved sports, and especially football, which I still do to this day. Any outdoor activities such as cycling, rowing and rock climbing, I just really enjoyed. I was also heavily involved in drama and I really enjoyed my acting classes. I started this from the age of 4 and I finished at 18, which I've achieved grade 8 in acting. This really helped my confidence when speaking to larger groups of people and transitioning from school to work. As my primary school was 20 minutes away from home, my mum would test me on my timetables daily on the car journey. And so I went into secondary school really enjoying and being confident in maths. And I think this is one of the reasons why I chose this career that I'm in today, because it's very numbers based, but you also need really good communication skills too. I think the highlight of my career so far was when I went to Liverpool to see the launch of the Sir David Attenborough ship. That for me was so important to the project, and it's going to really change the way they work in Antarctica. This for me was a highlight, and to see Sir David Attenborough himself was something that I won't forget. Supporting this project, even though it's thousands of miles away, is so exciting, as it's one of a kind. It is so unique. It's not every day that you can say that you've been involved in a project in Antarctica, as you're not dealing with the typical everyday issues. It's really funny to see how sometimes a group of penguins can have the ability to impact the timescales, even if it's only by a couple of hours. Knowing how by supporting this project, this is going to really benefit the scientists that are down in Antarctica, and so this will support the research and so really help the future generations by tracking down global warming and highlighting any risks. So what an apprenticeship scheme is you're getting paid to learn. So the one that I'm in currently with BAM Nuttall is a 3.5-year course, and I'm currently in my final year. So 3 months of the year I will spend at college in the north of England, Leeds, and 9 months I will spend on a project. So for example, for me, I'm based in Cambridge at the British Antarctic Survey. As you know, it would be a little bit difficult to travel to Antarctica every day. What's really good about this is, I'm getting paid to learn and I'm gaining invaluable on-the-job experience. It's really exciting living away from home, as I never thought I was going to get that experience because I actually didn't attend university. So I would definitely recommend doing an apprenticeship scheme to anyone who's currently unsure of what they want to do after school. Science careers are not necessarily just the obvious ones. Even if you think the science career isn't for you, it's definitely worth exploring the sector, as there are hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs that surround this industry. And thank you for listening.
That's great, Belinda. Thanks very much for sharing that with us. I mean, you raised some really interesting points out there that I think we all, those of us who have had the pleasure of going south, would recognise. When you're in the Antarctic, you're a long way from anywhere, so you take a lot of stuff with you, but we provide a lot of stuff there as well. And you saw Billy on his skis having a bit of a ski. So as you look out from our base, we have the ramp which you can ski down anytime you fancy. It's on your doorstep, which is amazing. We're big into sports, and I've run up and down the runway that we have there when we're not flying airplanes, obviously, and cycling as well. So sports and football is a really big thing that we have there. But we also provide a bunch of recreational stuff for anything and everything. Indoor climbing walls. We have every musical instrument that you can probably imagine that you probably have in your schools. So whilst you are there for quite a while, and some people spend the best part of a year and a half there because they overwinter, they have all of the things that you'd kind of expect to have access to at home. So it really is an amazing home from home. Hey, thanks very much, Belinda. That's very kind. Right, I'm going to come to Stuart now, somebody I work with on a fairly regular basis. So Stuart's with a company called Sweco. So over to you, Stuart.
Thanks, John. Yes. So my role in the project, the title is Technical Director, but that won't mean very much to anyone. What the Technical Director is, in simple terms, is I lead the design team. So I help the design team deliver the project. And to do that, what I do is I make sure that we get the understanding of what the client needs. So John will tell me what his what he needs in the project and what they want to do to use it at the end of the day. Billy and his team will tell me how they want to build it, what machines and what methods they want to use to build it. Belinda's team will tell me that it's costing too much money, so they want to do it for less money. And then I take that back to the design team, and we come up with a design that we hopefully makes everyone happy. So it gives John all that he needs to use the building. It gives Billy all the effective ways to build the building and ways that they can do it with the machinery that they have in Antarctica. And Belinda goes, oh, great stuff. I have enough money to do that. And we're all happy. So that's what I try to do on a daily basis. A technical director, well, I was very lucky. I grew up in the very far north of Scotland. So I lived in the countryside, and I had some great opportunities as a child as I grew up. And I had an uncle, and my uncle was like Wallace out of Wallace and Gromit, and he was always helping us create and build stuff. So I enjoyed that so much. I thought that I would make that my life, and then I studied well, maths and physics mainly. School was my two favourite. 16 years there building the far remote islands of Orkney. Here, sorry, am I back now?
You're back. Yes, we were losing you. How far north are you in Scotland at the moment?
I'm in Edinburgh, so it shouldn't be too bad. Normally it works okay, but yeah. So I grew up in the far north of Scotland, and then I worked there for 16 or 17 years, working on very remote islands, which taught me how to build things with difficult access to get equipment in, high winds, stormy seas. An awful lot of the stuff you see in Antarctica, but there was a bit less snow and ice when I was doing that as I was developing my career. But then I moved out of Scotland and did some other exciting projects in Scotland, and a few in Ireland, and in fact a few in other stretches in Europe. Probably the best project I did before BAS, because people that have asked me to tell you what highlight my career is, it's definitely working for British Antarctic Survey. There's no doubt in that. But my most exciting one before that was some large horsehead statues that we did in Scotland called the Kelpies. So maybe after the call, your teacher might look up that project. It's a super exciting project, and it was built there to give a sightseeing opportunity in an area of Scotland and take them to an adventure park that's right beside it. It's a great wee project. I've been to Antarctica a couple of times, and Antarctica is a fantastic place to visit. I don't know if I would do what Billy does and spend 6 months there at a time, but to go there for 2 or 3 weeks at a time is fantastic. And you see icebergs, you see whales, you see penguins, and you see a very unusual creature called an elephant seal. So an elephant seal is a seal the size of an elephant. They weigh 3 to 4 tons. And that's also another challenge in our design, because our designs have to be able to have surprise visits from things like elephant seals, because these seals like to rub against things that have been built, or they like to lie on things that you've built. So you don't just design it as you would do in Britain. You've got to design things for these very unusual loads that can happen in the use of your structure. But other things that I found extremely interesting in Antarctica is watching the icebergs flowing past where we work. But then again, we also have to design for those icebergs, because they crash into some of the structures we build. So you have to make judgments on big icebergs. They look fantastic, they look beautiful, but they can be very destructive. So that's a great excitement in Antarctica. And the final thing that I thought was fantastic in Antarctica is it's such a small community. Everybody knows each other, and it's such a friendly place to be. And you really have a really great, enjoyable and social time with the people that when you're down there. So I'll leave others to take the rest of the story on from there. John, thanks very much.
Hey, thanks, Stuart. That's really good. Great insight. And I have to say, you know, I think I don't want to be biased, but I think Stuart has one of the most amazing jobs. The ability to think about and be really creative about the designs for the buildings and think about technically how that's even achievable. And some of the things I'll never forget, I had a conversation with Stuart. We were building one of the wharves at King Edward Point on South Georgia. You remember one of the islands I showed you on the map? And we were taking down the old wharf, and we were trying to put a crane into place. And we wondered whether the wharf, the old wharf, could take the weight of the crane that we were using for the lifting. And he said, no, don't worry. Trust me, it will be fine. I've done the sums, I've done the calculations. The technical design is fine, and it was fine. But you know, at that stage, that shows you the level of understanding that you've got to have for that technical design. Amazing stuff. And elephant seals are incredible animals, absolutely incredible. They will come and lurk around your buildings. They love sleeping on runways. You can't land an aeroplane where then there's an elephant seal on your runway. So wherever you go around the station, you will find these things just lurking outside a doorway. Very, very strange. Like you would expect maybe to see a cat, you will find a seal. Absolutely incredible. Hey, thanks very much, Stuart. I'm going to turn finally to Scott, and then come back to your questions. I've got a couple of questions. Thank you from Charlton Mackerel Primary School. Any more questions in the text box, please? But Scott, come to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. So I'm Scott. I'm a digital construction coordinator. So what that really means is I look at digitising the project. So I look at the design, and part of the design is to provide 3D models. And I work with the 3D models, combine different models to get one whole element, look at how it interacts, look at interactions, how will we build it, and pick up any issues or potential issues that we may find when we're down in Antarctica. So it's part of this whole building it before we build it, really. So we've built it in a digital environment, and then when we go down, we'll know that it should be able to be constructed without any issue. So my childhood was mainly football. I always play computer games, still do. So my first one was a PlayStation 1. I now have a PlayStation 4 waiting on a PlayStation 5 being delivered. And I was part of the Boys Brigade and went up hill walking and all sorts with the Boys Brigade, which helped teamwork and your usual overcoming problems, etc. But I was very into maths. I've really enjoyed maths. I don't know why. I'm not a big English person, but maybe it's because I'm Scottish. But I like maths. I like numbers, and I like asking why. I like problem solving. I like finding an issue and then how do we overcome that. Sometimes it's not just me I need to go and find out more information, ask the right people, and then together we'll solve that problem. And that certainly came through into the civil engineering. I went to university after high school. We had done 5 years before I graduated and then joined BAM Nuttall. So the highlight of my career is certainly the same as everyone. It's going down to Antarctica. And I think I had an easier time down in Antarctica. I've got 2 brothers. I'm the middle child, so sharing a room with 3 other men was fairly comfortable for me. I was used to it. So you're just sleeping in a shipping container. So it's not very big spaces at all. There's 4 of you in that room. So you need to make sure that you're friendly and you certainly don't snore. The other thing I loved about being in Antarctica is every cupboard I opened was full of chocolate. So there was after eights, there was Jaffa cakes, there was dark chocolate, there was dairy milk, there was Galaxy. So it was surprisingly good food down there. I think I put on some weight, but that was actually a good thing. As well as we had regular football games down there. I think Bass actually beat us, but there might have been cheating involved, but that's what I'm sticking with anyway. So yeah, so if I take a wee bit of time and just talk about the whole digital construction aspect, where we are as an industry is we're looking at digitising a lot of our assets. We collect a lot of information as engineers, but we don't really do much with that. So there's certainly a big revolution. If you think about the industrial revolution, we're now in a digital revolution. We're collecting information, we're building bigger digital systems, and the plan will be certainly very soon that everything that will get built will be part of a large UK database. So you could open up Google Maps and see exactly something, how it's built, for example, exactly where it is, and have this 3D model as it was built. So as construction moves towards that digital thing, it needs its innovators, it needs people to push the boundaries. What can we do better? What are we doing well, and how do we better that? And what we're not doing so well, and how do we do it well? And that's where digital construction is certainly taking the industry, and it's why we need more free thinking, innovative thinking, and problem solving, like-minded people into the industry.
It's great, Scott. Thanks so much. And anything more you want to add?
No, nothing from me.
No, that's perfect. Well, and again, great experiences. So for those that are listening to this presentation, it's amazing how things have come on. It was only in 1944 when the British Antarctic Survey first really stepped foot on the continent. And in those days, we were living in tents and wooden huts. And some of those wooden huts are still at Rothera, almost 76, almost 77 years later. We still have the remnants of those, and those are what we're replacing. But in that time, we've also looked at how we design and create and support these new buildings in a way like that cutout that I showed you at the very beginning. You can get into the heart of all of the systems and understand how the building functions and how you can maintain it. And it's fascinating how it all kind of comes together. So digital is really your ability to design and create and understand that is a really important skill set for us in terms of what we're trying to do for the future. So very exciting stuff. So look, we've I think we've come to the end of all of our sort of presentations. So what I'd like to do is just run through some of the questions that you posed, and they're great questions. I think I'd like to start with Billy and Chris, if they're still on the line down south. And there was a good question here about food, and it's at the heart of everything we do. I think maybe Billy and Chris would like to reflect on how often they eat. You've also heard from Scott, and I absolutely recognise the amount of chocolate that is there is absolutely incredible. And you don't pay for anything when you're in the Antarctic. Effectively, everything is free. One of the benefits of being there is that all of your food and drinks and activity, everything is paid for. So it is literally free chocolate. But let me ask Billy and Chris just to talk a little bit about your diet and the sort of the good and the bad.
Yes, thanks, John. The food's very, very good. There's a lot of it. There are 5 official meal times during the day, and there's a team of chefs and assistants in the kitchen to feed us. There's breakfasts, morning breaks, we call them smokos on station, lunch break, an afternoon smoko, and then a dinner, just in case you haven't had enough food. It's all good quality, high standard. Plenty of choice as well. Obviously, getting fresh deliveries of food and vegetables is not easy in Antarctica. You have to rely on the ships that visit and planes that fly backwards and forwards to the Falklands or South America when COVID allows. But what the chefs, produce, given the limited fresh food, it's really amazing. And like you said, there's more than enough chocolate, snacks, biscuits, and other things. If you are tired of something you've eaten, you can eat something different every day.
Yes, and the chefs do requests when you're down here. If you have a favorite food that you'd like to ask for, they will definitely do their best to try to cook that for you. People who have birthdays get birthday cake. There's puddings every week. So yes, plenty to choose from. and everyone gets to eat what they like.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Billy. I mean, and also because we have an aircraft that flies in from South America and the Falkland Islands into Rothera, we do get freshies, so fresh veg comes in whenever the aircraft comes in generally. And of course, you can imagine that people are very excited about seeing fresh vegetables. But we do have freezers, and we do freeze a bunch of stuff down there as well. Maybe if we can just keep Billy and Chris on then, because you'll have been down there and experienced this right now. And I know that we're coming to the end of the summer, so it's autumn where you guys are. But what are the worst conditions that you've had to work in so far during your time there? So
we're going to try and put a picture up for you, actually. We saw this question coming. See if we can share our screen.
I'll try.
Yeah.
Just what they're doing. I know it's going to be fairly challenging. Yeah, but okay, that's coming. Yep.
Can you see that?
Yep.
So that's when one of the ships was here delivering equipment to Rothera. So this ship had come 15,000 kilometers, or about 9,000 miles, all the way from the UK to offload equipment for the station. And you can see the wind, and you can see the snow there, and you can see everybody has to be all wrapped up warm, wearing boots and hats and everything. So that's a good example of how bad the weather you can get. And you can also see that behind the ship is just white. It's just snow after that. You can't see the sea or the mountains or anything. The whole place is just snow. And we have to keep working in these kinds of conditions. So, yeah, it can be very challenging, but you can see that there's people out there still getting the job done and making sure the building happens, and that we can keep doing science in Antarctica all the time.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much for that, Chris. If you could stop sharing. Again, what everybody will see is lots of day glow orange there, and of course in the Antarctic, because of the conditions, and it's just a whiteout. Having day glow visibility, not least when you're on a construction site, but also when we're out and about in the field, our aircraft are painted red, so that you can see them against the sky and against the snow. Having visibility so you don't lose anybody is really, really important. So I can see that all of you in Cheltenham Mackerel Primary School, you'd be fantastic in the Antarctic because you've got the right visibility on, you've got bright colours on. We wouldn't lose you in the snow, would we? Fantastic. Okay, there were a couple of other questions here about how do we get the machinery down. Well, you've just seen the ship down there, and generally if we've got big machinery, we tend to use ships, and smaller parts obviously we can bring in on the aircraft. We don't use the aircraft a lot. We try to bundle everything together and put it on a ship, and the benefit of that is that everything arrives in one go. And it's a much more efficient and also environmentally, rather than lots of ships down, we send one down maybe once a year, maybe once every other year. And that's the way we get our stuff down there. So we're thinking about the environment as we do our planning as well. We don't worry about the ship sinking. You can see that the new ship that we're getting, the Sir David Attenborough, has been out on sea trials. And if you get a chance, go and Google that as well. It's another big project that we've been delivering. That ship will go down to Antarctica next season. So when I say next season, it's going to go down in November, so it's not really that far away. And we've proved that ship already is fantastically safe, able to operate in ice. It's got a great way of being able to rock itself from side to side to break out of the ice if it ever gets trapped. So the ships are all incredibly safe, and we love traveling on them. They're much nicer than some of the ferries that you might go to the continent on your holidays on. Are we ever worried about how the ice will react when we're working on it? I don't know, Scott, have you had any experience of working on the ice?
No, in Rothera it's actually solid land. So there is ice, as Jonathan mentioned, up the ramp. That is a glacier. And certainly over the astral summer you do see one or two cracks appearing. But in general sense, Rothera, the station is just on rock, so there's no fear that the ice will melt too much.
Thanks, Scott.
So just to continue that, yeah, if you in the schools want to go and look this up, so the North Pole is just ice. So it's just floating ice in the middle of the sea. And if you were to drill into it or to poke a hole in it, you'd just go down to the water. You'd be in the middle of the ocean. But at the opposite end, at the South Pole, all of Antarctica is land. So it's rock and earth and soil. So it's just snow on top. So that's why we can build proper buildings here, just like back at home, which is something that you can't do at the North Pole.
It's great. Thanks, Chris. I would just say that you can go and again look at Halley Research Station. That's actually on a sheet of ice, and we've had to move it. We've had to move it a couple of times because the ice has cracked. And when we look to replace that ice station in the next decade or so, we'll be putting it on rock this time. It went onto ice for a particular reason, but it's been a real challenge, and that has worried us. And you can see from the cracking from that iceberg A74, you can go and see some of the challenges that we've got. We call it the crack that arose there was called the Halloween crack, and you can just see it was literally a nightmare. But everybody's okay. Nobody was anyway in any danger over that. Getting in and around Antarctica, we do it in a number of ways. We've talked about ships, and we've talked about aeroplanes getting in and out of Antarctica. When we're there, we have skidoos, we have tractors with very complex tracks on them so that they can go over the ice and snow. We have lots of boats that we can go out, and increasingly we're using where we don't have to send people, either unmanned aircraft or unmanned submersibles that go under the water and do lots of research. So there's lots of ways for us to get around Antarctica. Somebody asked a question about funding. So our funding effectively comes from the government, partly for building the infrastructure that we've talked about today, but also funding for science. So some of that comes down directly through UK Research and Innovation as our organisation into British Antarctic Survey. But equally, some of our scientists go out and they win pieces of work to go and study very specific things, and that often comes with funding. So that's where some of the money comes from. I think we've all got, I'll just look at colleagues now. I'll give Stuart a chance to reflect on his favourite animal. Is it the elephant seal, Stuart, or have you got something else that is more favourite than that?
The elephant seal is definitely the one that surprised me most when I saw it, and they smell terrible, elephant seals. But the one that's most elegant, the one that really, it's scary as well, it's called a leopard seal. So a leopard seal, I don't know why they called it a leopard seal, because to me it looks more like a panther. So it's a sleek, very beautiful seal that lives in the water, but it's also very scary. It's a killer. It's got a very large mouth with massive teeth. And they live on penguins and seals. Other forms of seal, obviously not other leopard seals, but they are just so. I mean, they're beautiful, but it's like the same way that a tiger or a lion is beautiful. You don't want to be near them, and if they're anywhere near the structures, if we're working in the water, if they come anywhere near us, we've got to bring all the divers out of the water, because we've divers working on the bottom of our structures. They've got to come out of the water, and they've got to stay out of the water for 2 to 3 hours after we last see the leopard seals, so they don't get in danger themselves. But that's definitely, to my mind, apart from the whales, because whales are always beautiful. Every whale's beautiful, but the leopard seal is definitely the most beautiful animal that I've seen in Antarctica.
Thanks, Stuart. And I'm just going to ask Chris and Billy, well, what's the most exciting animal that you've seen while you've been down on this trip?
Well, we definitely see a lot of penguins. They're all over the place. They come and visit us. So penguins are birds, and we also see a lot of other kinds of birds as well. We see sort of seagull type birds and skuas, always sort of hopping around the station. But penguins for me are absolutely the best. Yes.
I would say for me it's the killer whales or the orca. These are black and white, stripy Yeah, nasty dolphins, but they're pretty cool animals. They've got a bad reputation, I think, but they're fairly rare. But we have seen quite a lot this season, and they're always quite a sight, especially with the massive, tall fins of the big males. It's really quite something to see this in the water.
Great, thanks, Billy. Look, I'm conscious of time, and we've got almost to the end of the questions. I think we've covered some of the questions on sport. So what I'd like to do is just for those who have been listening to us now, I'd just like a bit of a show of hands, really. So who is it that thinks that they want to be scientists out of STEM? Who wants to be a scientist? Anybody who's fired up by the excitement of science? Brilliant to see there, Charles Mackerel. I can see a show of hands there. That's very good. Well, and there's lots of exciting. I can see a few more over here as well. Lots of exciting science to go and do in the Antarctic. How about the technology? What about the digital piece? I guess you can say computing. I bet that's going to get a really big show of hands, is it? Not so many. Oh, okay. Got a few more over here. Okay, that's yeah. Again, really interesting area to get into in construction in particular. But I know a lot of digital skill sets out there. How about okay, like me? Who is the mathematician in the room? I'm definitely a mathematician. Yeah, problem solving, get the numbers right. Okay, brilliant. And who is it like Stuart and Billy and Chris who love Lego and want to be engineers then? Is that now I'm going look, Stuart's got his hand up there. Brilliant. I don't know, it's a pretty close run thing, isn't it? I mean, who doesn't like Lego? Who doesn't like Lego? I think it's brilliant. Well, look, I hope you found that interesting. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground there. I think we're all fired up about what we do because we understand the importance of science to all our lives, and a lot of that science has come from the Antarctic. We're very lucky that the work that we do takes us to the Antarctic or can take us to the Antarctic. Our ability to get involved with the nature and the science, our ability to solve the really complex challenges of getting there and designing the things that are going to be required there for years and years to come, I think is the challenge that we really enjoy. And I think all of us really enjoy seeing that delivered and seeing the really big and positive impact that makes. And I hope that you've really enjoyed listening to the team, and maybe in some small way you'll think about that in the future, because whether it's what we do in the Antarctic, science and technology and engineering and maths are just the most exciting areas to get into. And I really hope that you, whatever happens with your rest of your schooling and your future careers, that you look to that. So thank you very much for listening, all of you, and thanks very much for your great questions. And yeah, maybe see some of you again. So I'll let the schools drop off, and the rest of us will just have a slight wash up. But thank you very much for listening. Bye.